know that it's
Still recording?
real. Yep, it's recording.
Yeah, please go.
In that Sri Lanka game, that 100, I think it's my favourite ever celebration in cricket because it's not so much like you're obviously very emotional, but Watto is so happy. He was happier than he's ever been in his whole career for anything about himself. He's like giving you this hug like he's trying to squeeze the last bit of sauce out of the bottle, and his helmet's falling off because he's hugging you so hard, and he's just beaming this like high like headlight smile out of his face. It's a beautiful little moment between you two.
Yeah, it was, and he was so good for me during that World Cup. Someone who I rested a lot on, I suppose, at different times, and the way he was to me as a senior player and as a close friend was brilliant. And to be able to share that moment out there and feel the joy, I suppose, of him. The excitement that he got out of that. He'd obviously been through a bit of a lean patch as well. He was in and out of the side, and he'd just come back into that side and started to hit the ball really well. So I suppose we were both at different ends of our careers, I suppose, at that stage. But for him to sort of share in that moment and yeah, we embraced for probably a little bit too long. But yeah, I sort of didn't want to sort of turn around and still be crying in front of a camera. So that was a really special moment and something I'd love to be able to replicate.
What is it about Watto that it seems like when you talk to Shane's former teammates, there's a bunch of you who are huge Watto loyalists. What is it about his personality that draws you in so close?
Oh, he's an extremely intelligent man, that's for sure, and he's got so much experience. He's been through all the ups and downs of cricket. He's had people write him off, doubt him. He's had a lot of people, I suppose, get on the negative side of him, and he's been able to sort of come out the other side and be one of Australia's greatest ever one-day players and perform so well in basically every format. So for him to sort of still have that unbelievable humility and that aura around him that is just so approachable, and that's what I found, I suppose, when I came into the squad. He was so approachable, so easy to talk to, and was willing to, I suppose, give off any wisdom that he had.
When you got to that 100, you'd had a 90 against Zimbabwe not long ago, 95 against England, 88 against Afghanistan. You had a bunch of 90s in the IPL as well. Was it starting to get to you a bit at that point that you hadn't? I mean, I know it's such an arbitrary number and it shouldn't mean anything, but somehow it does.
That's right. To me, it shouldn't mean anything. But people kept on bringing it up that I'd never had 100 in any format for the country, and to me, it didn't really matter because it felt like my contributions were winning games for the team, and I thought that's all that should really matter. And whether I get 99 or 100, it actually doesn't matter too much. It's just I suppose, a stat that people will look back on, and you got X amount of hundreds, but I look back at, I suppose, the contributions that I've made that have helped the team get to a victory, and I don't think we've lost once I've got to 90. So I think that's a stat that I'm pretty happy with.
We're going to talk about stats later, actually, about your interest in that. It comes up in the search, funnily enough. But you said before that people get in your back about things, and that was something that at the time was drawing a bit of interest. How much do you pay attention to? Sometimes the media storm swells around you more than it does other players in world cricket. It really sharpens up. Like, how do you experience that on days when you are headlines around the country and sometimes even around the world?
Yeah, I suppose I've gone through different stages of embracing it, hiding away from it. You can become, I suppose, very introverted when you're away on tour. You spend a lot of time in your hotel room, and there's ample time just to sort of scroll through social media and read a bunch of negative stuff, and you can get into a pretty dark place at different times. But I suppose I've been able to read it and actually just sort of sift through it and either take it on board or just let it go by. But I'm pretty laid back and pretty relaxed about that sort of stuff, and people have their opinions, and it doesn't really faze me. What I know is that my teammates have got my back, and that's probably the main thing that I worry about.
You said something last year, late in the year, before the Big Bash, I think it was actually, about social media and the influence on mental health of players, how it can have a pretty big effect when you hit your mentions button, and it can be an absolute sewer. Again, what's your experience of how you handle that? Do you literally read through your mentions when you go well or go poorly, or do you have to discipline yourself to not actually read any of that?
No, I'm pretty open to reading it, but I'm also really good at sort of sifting through my feelings. I'm able to sort of talk pretty openly with other people, and I know that my support group will always be there for me as well. So I've got a really good support group that I can fall back on if I am having a tough day, or I am not exactly going through the greatest patch of form. So to be able to rest on people openly and honestly, and basically put your feelings out there for people to sort of see is something that's probably helped me along the way.
We usually try to maintain some degree of impartiality while covering cricket, but we give ourselves a couple of exceptions. I think the final word is a place where you can feel safe to express Maxwell enthusiasm, and there've been a lot of followers who've come in, they've been drawn into that circle. There's a huge number of people out there who just really fucking love the Maxwell work. Are you aware of that there's this sort of groundswell of affection for you as a player as well, that there's this really substantial part of the cricket community that wants nothing more than to watch you go about your work?
It's actually changed a little bit. I think early days, no one really wanted a piece of me. I think it was probably most of India were pretty excited when I turned up, and most of Australia were pretty much the opposite. So it's been nice to sort of change that over the last couple of years. People have been a little bit more, I suppose, accepting of me, and I suppose I've been able to sort of show my personality a bit more, and people have been able to take that. But it certainly helps if you're performing a bit for the country and playing well. I think as soon as you start to not play well, they certainly jump off board pretty quickly.
But people are still into you. Like you, a couple of years ago when you weren't even playing in the one-day team, you were running drinks. You were still on all the posters outside the MCG. They're using you to sell stuff. Like you're the marketable guy in that team.
I do remember a bunch of my mates tuning up to the G going, "This feels really weird. You're on all these big flags out the ground. Like there you are, 20 metres tall, and you're not even playing."
The same applied when we were in India a couple of years ago at the start of the Test series, when I can't remember what it was called, that bar across the road from the team hotel in Pune, when there was a cocktail named in your honour when you weren't even in the side at that particular moment. Like they love you over there.
Yeah, I do remember that, the Maxwell cocktail. That's I might have had a few. That's probably why I didn't get picked.
The story you talk about then about Jeff alludes to, people are on your trail quite heavily as
there's a helicopter flying over
goes
here.
right over the
They're
top
just
of where
trying to get
we're
footage.
right now.
Yeah,
That's right.
This exclusive one-on-one.
Always want pics. Always get pics. That extends to the way you've conducted yourself in the media as well. I mean, you do these great long-form interviews with Gerard Whateley on SEN, for example, where I mentioned it kind of as a bit of a throwaway line off the top, but you do just kind of say what you reckon. And maybe it's my old political hat on here, but people aren't always trained to say what they reckon. They're trained to give a line which will be palatable and not get themselves in strife. But I don't know, how do you feel about the idea that when you do give an interview like that you are going to be exposed? You're just at peace with that now, that you just believe that what you say is good enough and that'll be that?
Well, I think I put my personality out there and show that everything I say is pretty genuine, and I mean it from the heart, and people don't really want to hear the fluff. They want to hear the real stuff that actually goes on in our minds in the game. Like opening up about some of your deepest fears, I suppose, to the public can be quite hard for a cricketer, but to tell you the truth, it doesn't really bother me too much. I think everyone has them, and if you can open yourself up and sort of be personable, I think I don't know, it makes it a bit easier for people to relate to you, and makes it easier for people to come up to you in public, and instead of, I suppose, getting heckled like from across the road by a couple of drunk guys, they're actually more than happy to come over and say hello.
Yes.
Although sometimes drunk guy heckling can be, the Dirk Nannis.
Right,
Up to la gasolina.
Yeah,
there was
been
a
some
bloke in
moments.
Adelaide who was just singing Daddy Yankee to Dirk Nannis. He bowls
Up to la gasolina.
Give me that gasolina.
And I'll tell you, Dirk loved that
beautiful.
as well. He loved that guy.
Yeah, he loved that
Unashamedly
moment.
so. No, but I think this is quite an interesting vein we've tapped into here. I didn't expect to talk about serious stuff, but here we are. Like the idea that I'm sure you were media trained to the back teeth. I'm sure you were taught when you start to play for Australia, a centrally contracted player, a decade or more now in the professional game, how to get through a media conference with the straightest possible bat and kind of say nothing. But I've never sort of experienced that with you on the other side of the desk. I mean, you just kind of get up there, and I said it before, you just say what you think. And surely you must do that with a degree of mindfulness that sometimes it will get you in trouble. But as I say, like you've made your mind up almost beforehand that it's a risk you're willing to take.
Yeah, I suppose I go in with a few key things that I want to talk about, and you have a few people, I suppose, in the team that you really want to pump up, but I suppose it's about also being honest about it as well, and like talking about the impact that Watto's had on my career, being really open and honest about that, and I suppose not a lot of people sort of see that sort of thing, like they can just sort of see, I suppose, two teammates hugging on the pitch without really knowing any sort of the backstory. So to be able to, I suppose, express yourself and show people that you're actually a real person and not just a not just a 20-foot tall flag on the outside of the MCG. It's nice to be able to, I suppose, be a welcoming and approachable person in public.
Yeah, that's the big gulf, I think, for a lot of people watching sport. I remember I kind of had that moment when I was doing the tour in 2013, and that was the first tour I'd been on. And I had exactly that moment. It was with Shane Watson, actually, at the Oval. He'd made that 100, and he came in and he was almost apologising for it in his presser because it was the 5th game of the series and the series was gone, and he was saying, "Oh, I should have done it when it mattered." And, you know, it was like it was the best test day of his career batting, and he couldn't enjoy it. And he seemed so sad, and I sort of had this moment of going, "Oh, that's a real person. That's not a guy, like, it's not a character on TV. It's not an actor. It's not made up."
Yeah.
It seems like there would be this difficulty in making people realise that you're actually just a guy, and that everybody else who's playing is just one as well.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the real side of sport. The what we see when we go to a game of cricket, we see got 2 teams play, you go away, one team's won or lost. You sort of don't think about the aftermath or how the players sort of are feeling, the emotions that go through it. I remember the highs and lows that we've had, I suppose, over the last 12 months. I think when we left England shores last year, it was as bad as it could have been, and then to turn it around when we're leaving India with 2 trophies, with the T20 series and the One Day series, it's the complete opposite. So I suppose the feelings that players go through don't always, I suppose, shine through in certain interviews, but it's probably something I've been pretty conscious of.
Is it? Do you sense that things have changed a bit in the last, I guess, what are we now, 17 months since Cape Town, that there is a sense that you need to give more of yourself, and this environment around the team has modified a little bit since that kind of flashpoint in South Africa across the formats, not just in the test side, but that, you know, generally speaking, you are encouraged to, you know, give a bit more and so on?
Well, I suppose almost going back to the mental health, it's about making sure you're taking care of each other and sort of asking, I suppose, those questions about, is everyone actually okay? Is everyone thinking straight? Is everyone actually in the right mindset to go to training today or go to the gym or whatever it is? Just sort of, there's so much downtime, and if you just find yourself your mind just going off into really strange tangents. So to be actually able to look after each other, and it's something we've done, I think, been really conscious of over the last few months, definitely, and it's just making sure that everyone's is okay.
I know that we feel the relentlessness a bit of the tour, which is when we're following the team, but we're not training and we're not playing. You know, we're not doing the physical side of the relentless travelling. That, it's like the standard line has to be, it's not hard to get yourself up for a game playing for your country, but realistically, if you're playing that often, that many times, you can't be 100% switched on every single time. Like, it's just not possible for a human being to do that and not be burned out. How hard is it to juggle that and, you know, and to try to keep yourself at least okay, but without wearing yourself too hard?
Yeah, I suppose that comes down to the training sessions that we have. As you said, it's a long tournament. You can't go into every game 100% energy, 100% all guns blazing forward, and to actually try and get yourself physically and mentally fresh for every game during this tournament is going to be hard work. And I suppose every team's going to have their ways of trying to deal with that. I think after the first game, we've got about 5 games in 9 days or 10 days or something like that. So it's a pretty quick run where you've got to refocus, probably mentally refresh at some stage in between those games, but then switch on again and get ready for another side. And you're probably doing a lot of like cram studying as well. So it's going to be hard, I suppose, for different teams at different times. But I know that's going to be a challenging point for us, is how we mentally refresh and how we physically refresh for those games.
I'm not sure many people behind the curtain see that with professional sportsmen, especially, I guess, batsmen against bowlers and the matchups and so forth, how much homework there is for you now. Has that changed a fair bit even in your time as an Australian player? And give us just an example of what you might do ahead of a game in this tournament, without specifying a country, but how you might get yourself ready to walk out and bat in front of, 50,000 people, maybe not 50,000 in this country, 20,000 people in a game that means an awful lot.
Yeah, well, I watch a lot of cricket, so I've been watching most of the practice games going on and just sort of flicking between different things there. We also get sent a big sort of PowerPoint presentation which has links to footage as well for different players, so we can go through that and click on videos if we want to see their whole spell or whatnot. Or So that makes things easy for us, and it puts it all back in our hands to actually get ready. We also organise our own individual meetings with either coaches or I know for us as a spin group, so myself, Adam Zampa, Nathan Lyon and Sriram, our spin coach, will catch up with a bit of footage and just talk about some of the key matchups that we're going to face, I suppose, for the next game. And it's going to be harder and harder to do, I suppose, when the games do come a bit closer. But even just a 10-15 minute chat over a coffee is just good to either mentally refocus for the next game or the next challenge you're about to face. I think that could be quite helpful for us going forward.
I'm almost reluctant to move to the bit we planned, Jeff. But
can I get one more question before?
Please.
There's
We'll get there slowly. We'll gesture towards it. And we'll link it in
there's something I've been trying to clear up for 4 years now,
Okay.
and you and I have discussed it. But maybe we can finally crack it. The World Cup trophy is a big gold ball, right? And it sort of sits on some stilts. Now, in 2015, when the cameras are in, you know where I'm going with this now.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
When the cameras are in
bloke's inside, isn't he?
when the cameras are in the dressing room, in the background behind the interview, Brad Haddon is studiously pouring a beer over the top of the World Cup trophy, right? And it's like I think in his mind he's saying, well, it's a World Cup, you have to drink beer out of the cup. That's what you do when you win a cup, you drink out of it. But it's a ball. You can't. So he's really studiously, it's like he's trying to figure it out. And then about 5 minutes later, another interview's happening and he's in the background and he's doing the same thing again with another beer. Did you notice this? Was there a conversation? Did he ask, how do we get beer into this cup? Can you cast any light on what was going on?
I think at that stage, Brad had about maybe 2 or 3 beers, which would have sent him right over the edge. I think, he wasn't exactly piss fit at that stage of the tournament, so it hit everyone pretty hard. I think we went real hard straight after the game and wanted to celebrate. And I think guys were kissing the World Cup and so maybe he was just making it taste a bit better and
sure, just rinsing.
Maybe clever.
Yeah.
Maybe a good idea. I think.
A bit of
Foresight.
domestic, just
a bit of alcohol on top to make sure it,
it's cleanliness. I mean, look,
next to godliness.
Makes sense.
It also was probably a bit of a waste.
I mean, they were VBs, I think, or Crownies, so it's it's probably best to pour them out.
Are they a sponsor anymore?
I don't know.
I don't have a clue, to be honest. We'll
saying
stumble all over that.
That's where I will be careful there.
No, quite right.
I'll ask Steve Smith, what are you drinking tonight? Steve, I'll just say the sponsor's product,
Just say the
VB.
sponsor's product, that's right.
Right, but if it happens again, I mean, is there going to be more?
I'll make sure I'll get in the background and just hold the World Cup and drink the beer properly and just go, just pat it.
Or hollow it out and put a straw in it or something.
Like a coconut.
The Kookaburra blade, so we can
Pina colada.
We can use it in our advertising shots if you get it with the Kookaburra in there at the same time. What bat are you using at the moment, by the way? I think you got a new blade, don't you?
Got it.
You got a new bat?
You had the one. You had that one that you were trying to hold on to for a long time.
The Wonder Bat, the Homer Simpson Wonder Bat.
I've just given that back to Kookaburra to refurbish, so I should get that tomorrow.
What's the great man's name? The guy from Doveton North Cricket Club, the fellow who makes the bats down at the Kookaburra factory.
Lachlan.
Yes. What's his last name?
Dinger.
Ding. Yeah, the Dinger.
Doveton North Cricket Club, round the corner from where I grew up.
Lockie Dinger. What a great Australian name. Tim Whitten should have written a novel about Lockie Dinger.
It might be about his 5th mention on the show.
he does get a lot of mentions.
So you got a new. I should ask you this. There is a new bat. That it isn't the old bat, the Wonder Bat, the Homer Simpson.
No, it's coming back.
No, it's coming back.
It's refurbed.
It's refurbed.
So you're able to do that at this late stage before a tournament.
So I didn't touch it after, I think it was the 4th game in India, and I hit one to cover, and I was like, the face of this bat's gone, and I was like, I might just put it aside until I can get it fixed. So I hadn't touched it since then, and I've been just sitting at the bottom of my bag, and now I can actually go get it ready up for the next game.
And here's my clumsy segue. You search your name on Google, first thing that comes up, sure enough, IPL.
Right.
Which is, a variety of different terms. Glenn Maxwell, IPL. What team is Glenn Maxwell playing in the IPL for in 2019? Who is the best player in the IPL? You come up with that as well. It's quite kind.
Yeah.
You chose not to play this year. So that bat didn't have to necessarily come out for the Indian Premier League.
No.
That's a big call. I mean, obviously you're a wealthy man. You play a lot of professional cricket, but still you're foregoing a pretty significant cash, paycheck in a competition where you've made your name. Talk us through the process of coming to that conclusion.
Yeah, that certainly wasn't an easy decision, and I think with everything that happened at the start of last season, and I suppose I was a little bit frustrated in the fact that I wasn't able to get much first-class cricket, and I just felt underdone at the start of last year. So I sort of took things out of everyone else's hands and just gave myself the best option to play as much red ball cricket in England, with a view of obviously getting ready for the World Cup as well. Having 6 one-day games with Lancashire in these conditions, playing at Old Trafford, playing on grounds that we're going to be playing our games at was priceless, and it's comfortably been the best decision I've made this year. It was a hard decision. Like, obviously, it's a big career move, I suppose, missing out on such a lucrative tournament. But I think for hopefully the long run, and hopefully the potential opportunities that can open up at the back end of this year, it holds me in good stead, because I haven't been playing enough first class cricket over the last few years, and this is the best chance for me to get it.
Yeah, I think you've played, if I'm right in saying, 61 games of first class cricket over a decade. It's an incongruous line in your stats column, which must frustrate you. Not frustrate you, but the Lancashire experience was one game at the start of the season at Lords, when caught up with you there when you took your 5 wickets, and you were able to remind people that you were as much a threat with ball as with bat on your day, and then you went into a bunch of white ball cricket, so it wasn't quite the perfect schedule you could have had.
Yeah, but I think at the back end of this season, there's still a few opportunities for me to play red ball cricket. So once the T20s finish, I've still got a bit of time before I have to be back for Victoria, and Andrew McDonald's been really good. I've been chatting to him about a return date, and with our first JLT Cup game in Perth, I'm able to go straight there after the season, so it's not like I'm going to be rushing back for the pre-season where you sort of go back to then go forwards again. So I'm just going to be going straight from game to game, which is perfect.
And you might actually, I'm just trying to think about the schedule. There's not so much, because there's no ODI cricket at home this summer. You might actually be able to get a few Shield games.
Extraordinary. First time in my career that no white ball cricket in the summer. So it's going to be a strange summer for us, I suppose, with I think we've got 10 days in India. You've got a few T20s
in October, I think, against Sri Lanka or something like that.
Yeah.
But aside from that, you might actually be able to get a decent Shield stint in.
Yeah. Or I could get called in the test side and be 12th man the whole time. So that's the other option. But
is the pressure off, though? I mean, to an extent. I mean, the fact that you're not being talked about test selection every other minute like it was a couple of years ago. Do you feel as though if you did go back to Shield cricket this year, if you don't get a chance in August and September in the Ashes this year, that you'll go back with the best possible opportunity to do what you've been talking about for years, which is have a sustained period of red ball cricket?
Yeah, and I think you look back at I suppose 2 seasons ago when I had a bit of success batting at 3 for Victoria, it was actually just nice to play some red ball cricket consistently back to back. I got into a nice rhythm, scored a heap of runs before Christmas, and was actually able to finally put some numbers on the board where, as you said, only 61 first-class games in a decade isn't many. And I think if you look at anyone that's played for as long as, or played over the last 10 years, I think I'd probably have the lowest amount.
For sure.
For guys that have been available anyway, not injuries, but it's been probably too few and far between, and this decision to go to Lancashire was just to basically take it out of everyone else's hands, and hopefully it pays dividends, as I said, at the end of the year.
One of the entries on the list, one of the first ones, is Glenn Maxwell, Cricinfo. Are you the kind of player who knows your stats, who looks things up and keeps abreast of things, or do you find it easier just to not think about that too much?
I don't think about it too much. I suppose strike rate's been something that is talked about a lot with me. I like to sort of just see how that's going with, like, I think it's about 158 or something, 159 T20s and about 121 in one days.
Correct, 121.95 at present. Currently second all time. Qualification category is minimum of 500 balls. Right. Andre Russell's got you covered at the moment.
About 130. And
he's 130.
Asif Ali's now up there with 130. So he's got some.
And Joss Butler is creeping up on you. 119 now.
Yeah, I like those sorts of stats because I think I find them interesting. But as far as averages, I suppose when you bat in the middle order, you can't really worry about it too much. A lot of the time, you're sort of sacrificing your wicket at the back end of the innings, trying to get the team into a better position, and it's never really fazed me too much.
Adam, pop quiz here. Those are the top 3. So can you guess who the other 2 are in the top 5? Neither of them is Brendan McCullum, but one of the.
I do. I know.
Oh, okay. Well, you're it, Glenn. Go.
I know Afridi's 1.
Yep, Afridi's 5th. But who's the other rounding out the top 5?
So must have faced 500 balls in T20s internationals.
In one days. This is one day internationals.
We're back there again. Yep. Okay. Best strike rate in one days of all time. It's not McCullum, and you've got Afridi already, and him. He's in there, and Joss is in there.
Yeah. So you've got Joss, Dre Russ, Maxwell, Afridi,
and there's a 5th.
There's a 5th. Well, sorry, Freddie's fifth. So who's fourth?
Is it maybe James Faulkner?
It's not.
No.
It's Lionel Can, who played for Bermuda and faced 502 deliveries in one-day internationals. His high score was 52 and he made one half-century.
That's like naming the people that average above 50 in ODI cricket, and Ryan Tenduskarter is
That's
one
right,
of them.
yeah.
He's
He's got one of the
60,
greatest
isn't he?
records
He's
of all
right up
time.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, also his hundreds per innings rate is the best besides Virat, I think. He's about
I
five
think he's got
point something.
Yeah, I thought he had it
100
covered.
every 5 innings.
Yeah,
That's
it's
perfect.
crazy numbers. I say bring him back. If Holland were in this World Cup, he'd be playing, that's for sure.
Absolutely, chicken tenders.
Your stats, though, I mean, again, it kind of comes back to your lack of first-class cricket, but it's something that people occasionally bash you over the head with. Even last year, there was a conversation about how many hundreds you had made in professional cricket. So you just kind of want to pick up the phone and go, hang on, like, I bat it often 5 or 6 or 7.
Or even 8.
Or even 8. It's been, I mean, you made 100 from 8 in first-class cricket. Famously, probably, your most well-known nerdy 100 is the one where people go back against New South Wales, however many years ago it was, but coming in at 6 for 9. You must have listened to our live podcast, clearly. But no, that is something that people do wallop you about. It must sort of seep through at some level.
To be honest, I don't let it faze me too much, and I think having had a number of amazing life experiences and amazing things that I've achieved, it doesn't really bother me too much. Like if my career ended tomorrow, I'd be okay. Like I'd be able to find other avenues in my life where I'd still get the same joy. But I'm still extremely proud of everything I've been able to achieve. I've got 100 in every format. I've been able to, I suppose, get my way back into the Australian Test side, get 100 in arguably the toughest place to score runs as an Australian player. So I've been able to achieve some pretty amazing things from, I suppose, what people thought wouldn't have been possible for me. So I still have high hopes of getting back into that Test side, but as I said, I'm pretty proud of what I've achieved.
Reverting back to the list, Jeff's gone out of order, which is Jeff's way.
Just quickly on that, you would know who the other player is who's made one in all format. There you go.
Yes.
But together forever.
Exactly right. Still hugging.
The next thing that comes up a couple of times: Glenn Maxwell wife, Glenn Maxwell girlfriend.
Yep, girlfriend.
I met your partner at the AB medal.
Yep.
I hope you're still together. Otherwise, that's going to be.
Yeah, that's very awkward. She's brilliant. She's coming over in a couple of weeks, which is going to be good, and Mum and Dad will be over as well. So hopefully, Mum takes the missus out for a while, and I can go play golf with Dad for a bit.
Is that? I mean, this is going to sound like a slightly odd question, but I'll ask it anyway. Taking your girlfriend to the AB medal when you know it's going to end up in the social pages and you know it's going to end up being a bit of a talking point, is that a conversation you have as a couple? Like, are you ready for this this kind of attention?
It's a big thing because she's Indian descent. Like that was probably the biggest thing, and like, so she had like a private account on Instagram, and because she got dolled up and all the dress and all that sort of stuff, she sort of had to go off private, and all of a sudden these people just started like flowing in with comments, and so that probably hurt her more than anything. Like, just sort of never been exposed to that before in her life, and we've been together over a year and a half now. So it's been good fun. Like, for her, it's been a pretty amazing experience to sort of see what I've probably gone through with social media, and trying to talk her through that and make sure she's okay. That's probably the main thing.
How hard is that then, being on the road all the time, like trying to maintain a relationship while you have to be away from home for so much of the year?
Well, yeah, it certainly is difficult, and probably most of the time we did spend together in the early stages of our relationship was overseas. I wasn't home very often, and probably didn't get the chance to sort of spend as much time with her as I would have liked. So a lot of time we were sort of travelling and sort of trying to make it work. And it was only when I think I had something happen where I was just home for a while, and we were actually able to make it work. And that's the only reason our relationship is probably as strong as it is now.
Next on the list, less personally interesting, but all the same. People want to know how old you are. That comes up quite frequently. But
that's a bit boring.
Yeah, but
30.
But what I'll take from that though is there's a lot of debate about when batsmen reach their peak or their prime, and what is the period of that? Do you think you've kind of are you in the middle of it, or do you think ahead of you, or how do you frame that up? It's kind of an intangible question in a way, but do you sort of feel as though in your own stance and at the crease that you've never been as in control as you are at the moment?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I've had stages in my career where I've batted really well and been in control. So I think I've always sort of felt like I've just sort of gone with the flow and sort of never really been in or out of form. It's just every now and then I'm hitting them all right, and then just keep hitting them all right, and then all of a sudden I'm out for 90 odd. So
it makes us feel much better when you say things like that. I think it sounds like such a normal person. Oh yeah, I'm hitting them all right, and then I'm not hitting them all right.
Yeah.
It reduces the game back to what it should be.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's been times where I've felt ordinary, and you get a bit of luck early on where it might be an umpire's called DRS decision, or you dropped somewhere, and all of a sudden you're away. But all of a sudden, when you feel like you're out of form, someone takes a hanger, average decision, and it all seems to go against you. And I know Finchy sort of felt like he went through that recently, and felt like the Indians had a homing beacon on his front knee.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was able to get through that, and he said to me, it was he just got through a stage where it was he got to face like a spinner and took him on, hit him for 6, and all of a sudden it clicks and you're back, or it feels like you're back. It's that's right. Now I remember how to hit the ball again.
Aaron Finch, obviously you two live together and great mates and so on. How tough is it for you as a mate, not so much a colleague and a teammate, but as a pal, watching him go through a trot like that when you're in the same team and you just would do anything for him to get over the hump?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing is how to bring it up with him. He's he's trying his hardest. He's doing everything he can. He was training so hard, and as he admitted to, he probably overtrained and probably didn't give himself that mental refresh. And that was, I suppose, a big learning experience for him, and probably happened at the right time as well. Like leading into a World Cup, it's better to have it, I suppose, then and not in the middle of a World Cup where he can't find a way out of it. But the way he has gone about it since then, and been really open and honest with the rest of the group, and I suppose that's something that we've always talked about, is being honest with each other. And I know people probably took the mickey out of elite honesty, but it's something that's probably been a big thing for him.
We never did that. Never.
No, never did I
fully respected
take
that.
advantage of the elite honesty weekend. No.
It's important to be elite in everything that you do. Next on the list is Glenn Maxwell, height. Are you like? Where do you sit in terms of like the perfect physical structure to be a T20 hitter? In terms of being shorter, in terms of being taller.
I think I'm about the right height for that. I'm about probably 20 kilos light of what I reckon the ideal T20 performer is. I think if you look at Andre Russell, he's probably what you think of as a T20 machine. And yeah, I don't understand how I'm able to hit sixes. Like, I sort of look in the mirror every morning and go,
there's the line for there's the title of the episode right there.
It's like that is pathetic. That's what you're bringing to the table. I'm terrible in the gym. I barely go. There was one summer where I don't think I went once, and I turned up with the Australian side soon after. He goes, "Oh, how's your gym program going?" I said, "What gym program?" My body shape has never changed, and but yeah, I feel like I'm able to still be pretty flexible and still run fast enough. So all you got to do is try and get it just over the rope. So
you haven't worked it out yet. You don't know how it happens.
Nah, I think it's something to do with golf or my bat swing, or someone thought it was the hair on my arms or something like that. But
which is famous. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about your forearms.
Way too much chat.
Yeah.
I think now
it always comes up.
Now that my body's on the Cricket Live app, they're just sitting there at the front, and they asked me about it, and I said, "Is there any chance you could Photoshop those arms, just with someone normal?" But yeah, when the uniform came out, there was way too much chat about my arms and not enough chat about the uniform. So that was probably not what Cricket Australia was looking for.
But you've got that link though with Ricky Ponting. People are always saying Ponting, Maxwell, the arm off. It's nice to be bracketed with the legend.
Yeah, and wrongly so. He's an absolute champion. He was in there before, and I was just staring at him, as I always do. But yeah,
is that how it works? Does he wake up in the middle of the night and you're just sitting by his bed, just looking at him? I was just watching you sleep, Ricky.
Hey mate, how you going? No.
Got any tips?
Yeah.
Just talking to Ricky.
Hey mate, do you want to do a fielding session together? That was one of the highlights. It was in Mumbai. 2013, you'd like this. So literally one of the greatest training sessions ever, where John T. Rhodes was the fielding coach, and he was hitting balls out to me and Rick, who were having a stump hitting contest, and That was fielding porn right there. That's literally everything I could have dreamed of as a kid, like just happening right in front of my eyes.
Did you get him? Who won the
I
stump
don't know.
off?
I think I was like shaking the whole time, just excited.
It's
giggling.
like the dream dinner party
Yeah,
game, but
like,
for fielding drills.
Who you gonna bring to get dinner? Well, who's the 3 best fielders of all time? I'm gonna bring Andrew Simons, Jonty Rhodes, and Ricky Ponting.
If it's slips catching, it's who had the best glide to third man
that's
in
right.
history.
Yeah, it's like you used to reading the footy record when you're growing up. It was always, favourite movie, Shawshank Redemption. Who'd you have around for a dinner party? Jack Nicklaus. Or Jack Nicholson, one or the other. They'd always get a Guernsey.
Albert Einstein.
Albert
Probably got a few
Einstein.
gigs. Mother Teresa.
We've got here.
Wayne Gretzky.
I was going to ask you more about your body type and all that, but you've done such a better job than we could have done in describing it there. It says here Glenn Maxwell, Lancashire, and I assume that's a recency bias thing. You've just played there in the last couple of months, but. What I want to take that was, you talked about the day after the World Cup when you'd all been on the gas the night before. There was actually a press conference the next morning when they announced the squad that went to England. Not you weren't there, but Rod Marsh was. Uncle Rod Marsh was doing the press conference, and you and James Faulkner weren't taken to England. But, I mean, the message was loud and clear. They're not coming to the West Indies, they're not coming to England, but, it's a matter of time before they're going to be playing consistent Test cricket. We're just going to, manage them through this stage of their career. So you didn't go to England that time, but you've been to England consistently thereafter, whether it's for short-term blast contracts or, I guess, playing in the national side in white ball cricket. You've made the comment before that you feel like England's where you're best suited to play, which I think most people would assume, given where you've played your international cricket, that would be India.
Yeah.
But it's not, is it? It's a misunderstanding in your game that you feel most comfortable when the ball is bouncing and doing a bit.
Yeah, I think I've always enjoyed the conditions over here. I don't know. I don't really know why, because I think my game is probably more suited, if you look from the outside, to the lower spinning tracks of India. But every time I've come over here, I've felt just like I suppose a little bit of a different player, where I'm able to actually play a bit more naturally, not have to sort of take as many risks, and the ball actually comes on a little bit nicer. And well, I think in India you probably play a slightly more high risk game where. The ball spinning, you have to take certain risks against spinners to be successful. And but yeah, I think looking back, I suppose the Yorkshire stint, I think that was a big case of why I was able to sort of get that time over here. Finchie broke his foot midway through a stint, and I was supposed to only play the T20s, and once he went home with a broken foot, I took over and played the rest of the season, and ended up playing a lot of white ball one-day cricket and a few 4-day games as well. And that was a big
the Scarborough 100, the famous
Scarborough 100.
Barbados.
Well, we were 5 for 60, I reckon, and myself and Adil Rashid put on, I think, 250 in about 40 overs.
Jason Gillespie said to me, this is about 3 years afterwards as well, so it wasn't a recency thing. He said that's the best innings he's ever seen in cricket.
It's nice of him, isn't it?
I mean, did he mention it to you?
Yeah, he did, but I certainly felt it when I was out there batting. It was a time when everything was going terribly wrong for us. I think we got bowled out for 120 in the first innings, then bowled them out for 115 or something like that. And when we were 5 for 80, it was all going in the same direction. And I don't remember missing the middle of the bat for the whole innings. And to do it against an attack of Rushworth, Onions, Hastings, all up and firing was something I remember really fondly.
The rhythms of county cricket seem to agree with you as well. I caught a peek of you singing this song in the dressing room at Lord's a couple of weeks ago, going fucking mental. I mean, it feels as though you bring something to those dressing rooms, and they give something back to you.
Yeah, they certainly they bring out the competitive side of me, that's for sure. I certainly jumped on board the Lancashire boys and loved everything they brought to the table. With a young squad as well, they were really good in the fact that they were all really open in coming up, asking questions if they had anything. I think when you get a young squad, sometimes they can be a bit timid. They sort of don't want to go talk to the overseas player, but they were all full of questions, all willing to learn, and I think that made my time there a lot easier. Go to trainings and you're always able to help someone, whether it be with their fielding or just talk about one-day batting. So I really enjoyed that part of it.
I'm interested in the emotional side of that. You travel around the world, you join these different teams, you drop in there, and it might be for a month, it might be for 2 months, it might be for a couple of weeks, but you have this quite intense experience with with these teammates. You maybe achieve something amazing, or you have a near miss and you have the hurt of that, or whatever it is, and you develop a bond in quite a quick space of time. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you have a sort of professional distance, but then suddenly you're out of there and you're gone. And if you have developed a friendship, then it becomes kind of theoretical after that. You're not likely to see that person much, or I don't know. How is it just landing in those places but then having to up and disappear again all the time?
I think I was able to make friends with one of the younger players really quickly. I watched him bat in the indoor nets at Loughborough, and just loved the way he hit the ball, loved the way he swung, and so I started working with him straight away and just had a chat, and he was really open to any suggestions that I had for him, and we became really close. And my girlfriend was over there, and sort of went on a few double dates, and was able to sort of handball my partner off to his, and we were able to go out and play golf and have a few drinks together. So to be able to find, I suppose, a close mate like that straight away, and find someone that has similar interests was, I suppose, key to me having so much fun over there and being able to sort of have those, I suppose, same conversations of, are you okay, and like, how are you travelling, and he was probably the same. He probably had someone who had no history with the club, was able to sort of be able to be a filter for him to sort of like basically drop any shit he had just on me, and I was able to sort of siphon sort of through it. So it was I suppose it was nice for him and probably nice for me as well.
Is it hard to leave that though, like to suddenly have to, all right, your time's up, you've got to go?
I think the fact that I'm going back there at the end of the season probably makes it easier. I think if it was just Carter, it's probably a little bit harder. You feel like you've probably got unfinished business there. I left halfway through a tournament where Jake Lehman took over the last few games in the final, so it was a little bit hard there, knowing that we were sort of building to something there. We'd won 4 or 5 games in a row and in a really good space heading into finals, so that was a little bit difficult, but I suppose it's just the way modern sport is now.
Kind of bridges nicely to what is basically the last search topic. There's one here saying, will Glenn Maxwell play? I won't touch on that because we said we won't get you into trouble. But where is Glenn Maxwell now? It's like an existential question. Where is Glenn Maxwell now? Well, right now...
I could be anywhere.
I
could be in the Dandenongs right now.
You could be in Dandenong behind a tax building there.
Yeah,
is it deep in your heart? Are you missing Dandenong at the moment?
Mount Dandenong, yeah.
People are mixing that up. I've been getting that mixed up my whole life, Jeff. You should know better than that.
Dandenong and Mount Dandenong are two completely different.
Well, I know. I've been to both of them. I've only bought drugs in one of them. But I've only picked mushrooms in one of them either.
So you had your life threatened in one of those places as well.
Yeah, let's be kind about where I come from. So the question about where you are now, which you've just touched on then about the in and outs and whatnot, read a lovely little nugget in the piece that you must have been interviewed for with Johnny Pierrick in The Age on Saturday. And I love this bit about, well, first of all, the South Belgrave Cricket Club, who are brilliant on Twitter, and they're always pumping you up. They're absolutely brilliant. They're always doing the right thing by you. When you made that 100 at Ranchi a couple of years back, you gave them the signed shirt that you wore in that innings. I saw you tweeting away in one of the games you were playing here when they were in their semi-final or grand final in the season just gone. I mean, I don't know if it's common, but that a player at your level would still maintain such a deep link to their home club. But just talk us through that relationship and why the bond's still so strong.
I think our family was so deeply built into that club. So Dad was always a part of the board. He was either vice president, treasurer, secretary, whatever it is. He was always some part of the board. So my brother was vice president for ages, captain of the first 11. We just always had such a deep connection with the club. We lived right across the road.
Right.
We always had the keys to the change rooms if anyone needed them, which was great for me. Had the keys to the nets. Always used to go up there and use them. And they were so good to me. They gave me everything, every opportunity to succeed, and gave me the best chance to have a cricket career.
The other bit in there is that your nickname at South Belgrave was Aussie after Aussie Jones in the '97 grand final. And I thought, when I read that, I'm like, that is about spot on. Like, we talk about Glenn quite a lot professionally in our jobs, and thinking about Aussie Jones, and if I close my eyes thinking about that season in '97, now I'm not a St Kilda supporter, you obviously are, but seeing the freedom in which he played the game as a young man and the freedom in which you play our sport in, there's some nice parallels there.
Yeah, I still remember... I reckon I was about 9 years old, wearing my Aussie Jones jumper, and I was on the boundary at training. It was either a Tuesday or a Thursday night. My brother was out there, and I'd just sort of stand on the boundary and throw balls back whenever it was, and and because I had Aussie Jones on the back, they would just call me Aussie the whole time. So that sort of stuck for when I played my first senior game there when I was 11 or 12. So yeah, it's a nice story. I've still got like my fourth 11 premiership cap with Aussie written on the side of the hat. That's
it's better than the Big Show.
Yeah,
like,
well, now
as far
we
as
know
nicknames go. Why aren't you Aussie Maxwell in all the headlines? Aussie Maxwell does it again.
Aussie.
Better than Aussie J. Bugner last time we had an international.
It's actually funny. Like, I actually met Aussie. We've been last year or sometime. We ended up at is it the Watershed or Waterside Hotel? The other side of
Flinders Street or
opposite the footy ground. Metricon. Is it
Oh,
Metricon?
right.
What is it?
No,
Marvel. Opposite
yeah.
Marvel.
The Dockland Stadium, let's say. We're not going to promote any of the commercial nonsense.
Whatever that.
The Savoy Hotel.
The one with the roof. So
the Savoy?
No, it's like the Watershed Hotel or something like that. The Waterside Hotel.
Right.
And went over there for a few drinks with some mates, and Aussie Jones was there, and
big moment.
He came up to me and goes, "Hey, how you going? Like, love watching you love watching it play." And I was like, "Yeah, right. This is interesting." I was like, "I've got a story for you."
It's the reverse of Never Met Your Heroes, really,
yeah,
isn't it?
It was really strange.
Oh, you should get him to sign that cap.
It's funny. I got a few photos with him. He was well and truly on his way. I think he was playing footy the next day as well. He wasn't sure how he was going to get home. I made him late because I made him get an Uber home after he missed the last train.
It's beautiful. I used to love Aussie Jones. I wasn't a St Kilda supporter either.
He was great to watch.
The way he'd take off out of the goal square and just run the length of the ground.
It was that 97 with Joel Smith and Aussie Jones. They're probably 19 that year, probably around that.
Like
maybe 20 if they were lucky.
He got drafted in 95.
Right, yeah. So they were just, that pivotal stage when you're going to make it or you're not going to make it. Obviously, St Kilda make the grand final.
Yeah.
We haven't. Obviously, St Kilda isn't on our list of questions, but how closely do you follow it? I mean, we follow it pretty closely from afar. Do you still, watch the games and track the scores and get down to Dockland Stadium, whenever it is that you are home?
Yeah, whatever that stadium's called. Yeah. I get down to the rooms as much as I can and go see a few of the guys, and whenever I'm in town, and they've been always really welcoming to have me in the rooms. Just go and sit there and just chat to them while they're doing their recovery and just talk a bunch of garbage with them, really, and they want to know what's going on in tour life, and because I suppose they're stuck in Australia for a whole season, they sort of don't probably see the other side of professional sport, which is, I suppose, on the road all the time.
You should get your mate Ricky to sort you out. Wasn't he number one member at North Melbourne for a while there?
Yeah, I think, and Warney was number one at the Saints for a bit, wasn't he?
Yeah,
pretty sure.
Possibly.
It's in your future, sure. Eric Banner. Well, you can't really knock off Eric Banner.
I'm not even close. If I win another World Cup, maybe.
But at least it's easy if you go to St Kilda. You're not going to forget anyone's name. You're just Jack.
Yeah.
Jack.
Yeah,
Hey,
Jack. It's pretty JB. They're all JB.
With the interest of our international listeners at front of mind, Jeff, I think that's probably the
Enough
right
AFL
moment
chat
for us to close the interview with Glenn Maxwell. As I say, hopefully the second of 3 final word ups. Any further questions, Jeff, before I wind it up?
Not so much a question, but you may be interested to know, listeners of the podcast, there's so much Maxwell backing. They're sending us Maxwell-related trivia questions.
The numerology segment every week.
They're clamouring for Maxwell-related merchandise. Like there's a lot of love out there. I wonder if you have anything to send out to those listeners.
Well, there's a few shirts getting sold on the streets of India that are spelt with Maxwell on the shirt, but they're spelt MEXWELL. I'm sure they're on special if anyone wants them.
Lovely. I must have that shirt.
I remember that.
Tex Maxwell.
2014 IPL. There was plenty of them on the side of the streets. There haven't been many since. I love the support I get, I suppose, from you guys and the fans back in Australia. As I said, didn't always happen like that in Australia, and I had to travel 13 hours in a plane to get to India to sort of get any sort of support. So it's nice to have it back home as well.
And when you go out to bat in the World Cup, you can know that you're carrying a lot of goodwill with you from some of these strange and interesting people on the internet who are following along.
At our live show, for example, I mean, we did spend an hour talking about you and your whole career. So we had some people.
The people didn't know, so we rocked up at the start and said, "What we're going to do is do an hour about Glenn Maxwell," and the room cheered.
Right.
Like the whole room was like, "Yes, we are here for this."
Very emotionally invested.
I have one last question.
Oh, please be my guest.
Can I have a hug?
Of course you can.
This is lovely.
Yes. Oh, it feels so good.
Just recreating the Watto moment.
Oh, Watto.
I'm not wearing a helmet though.
Oh, Watto. I just cried a little bit.
Glenn Maxwell, it has been an absolute pleasure having you join us on The Final Word. And, of course, as ever, thanks to Kookaburra for making it possible. Good luck in the World Cup. We'll be there throughout. I'm sure we'll catch you at some stage. I hope you get a chance to celebrate another World Cup victory and continue to bolster your cases to be a 3-format player and achieve all you want out of the game.
Let's hope so, guys. Cheers.
And when you go back upstairs, say, man, I just survived a cold, impartial grilling from a couple of hard-edged cricket journalists. Whoa, that was a tough one. Good.